Please rise as you are willing and able for our hymn from the Gray Hymnal, number 118, This Little Light of Mine. We bid you welcome. In this community of radical inclusion, we make space for what you believe and what you love. Your whole self is welcome here. In this community of open-hearted inclusion for all people, we do not expect you to think a certain way or restrict yourself to one set of beliefs. We only ask that you try to live a kindly, helpful life with the dignity proper to a human being. Welcome, all who may believe that religion is wider than any sect and deeper than any set of opinions. Welcome, all who may find in our friendship strength and encouragement for daily living. We are so grateful that you are here. My name is Helen Smith, and I am your service leader today. My pronouns are she and her. Thank you for spending your Sunday morning with us, whether enjoying the service in person or watching online. This morning, we are fortunate enough to have member guest speaker Paul Bailey in our pulpit. I'd like to extend a special welcome to any visitors today. After the service, we invite you to stay for coffee and conversation and join us downstairs in our reception hall. Please take a moment now to silence your phones, but we encourage you to share your presence with us on social media. I have a couple of announcements today. The UUCF annual picnic is on Sunday, September 8th after church service. Drinks, hot dogs, and corn will be provided along with your potluck dishes. The picnic will be held at a new location this year at Rotary Park in Novi. Just a reminder that our service auction fundraiser will be held on November 16th. The theme this year is superheroes. It's kind of cool. We'd like to give everyone enough time to start thinking of what you might like to donate for the silent auction, as well as events, dinners, and services you would like to provide that will be part of the live auction. More information will be coming soon. And here's a quick preview of next week's service.
Coming Sunday, we are talking about this concept of shared ministry, that we are all responsible for creating the world we want to see. Each of us brings something individually, but what happens when we create together?
For more video content, check out our social media on Facebook or Instagram at UU Farmington. And also check the UUCF website or emails for other announcements and upcoming events. Everyone please join me in sharing our affirmation of mission. We seek answers everywhere, include everyone, and live with compassion. Our chalice lighting reading today is entitled Strange and Foolish Walls by A. Powell Davies. The years of all of us are short, our lives precarious. Our days and nights go hurrying on, and there is scarcely time to do the little that we might. Yet we find time for bitterness, for petty treason, and evasion. What can we do to stretch our hearts enough to lose their littleness? Here we are, all of us, all upon this planet, bound together in a common destiny, living our lives between the briefness of the daylight and the dark. Kindred in this, each lighted by the same precarious, flickering flame of life. How does it happen that we are not kindred in all these things? How strange and foolish are these walls of separation that divide us? And now we're going to have a meditation moment. Our meditation reading is titled Meditation for Those Gathered in Worship by Barbara J. Peskin. Take a moment to feel the pull of gravity tugging your body towards the center of the earth as you listen to the words. In this familiar place, listen to the sounds of breathing, creaking chairs, shuffling feet, clearing throats, and sighing all around. Know that each breath, movement, and glance meant for you or intercepted holds a little life within it. These are signs that we choose to be in this company, have things to say to each other, things not yet said, but in each other's presence, still trembling behind our heart's doors. These doors closed, but unlocked. Each silent thing waiting on the threshold between unknowing and knowing, between being hidden and being known. Find the silence among these people and listen to it all. Breathing, sighs, movement, holding back. Hear the tears that have not yet reached their eyes. Perhaps they are your own. Hear also the laughter building deep where joy abides. Despite everything, listen, rejoice. Please remain seated for our meditation song from the great hymnal, number 391, Voice Still and Small. By Walt Whitman. O maidens and young men I love and that love me, what you ask of my days, those the strangest and sudden your talking recalls. Soldier alert, I arrive after a long march, covered with sweat and dust. In the nick of time I come, plunge in the fight, loudly shout in the rush of successful charge. Enter the captured work, yet lo, like a swift running river they fade. Pass and are gone they fade. I dwell not on soldiers' perils or soldiers' joys. Both I remember well. Many of the hardships, few the joys, yet I was content. But in silence, in dreams' projections, while the world of gain and appearance and mirth goes on, so soon what is over forgotten, and waves wash the imprints off the sand. With hinged knees returning, I enter the doors, while for you up there, whoever you are, follow without noise and be of strong heart. Bearing the bandages, water, and sponge, straight and swift to the wounded I go, where they lie on the ground after the battle brought in, where their priceless blood reddens the grass, the ground, or to the rows of the hospital tent, or under the roofed hospital, to the long rows of cots up and down each side I return. To each and all, one after another, I draw near, not one do I miss. An attendant follows holding a tray, he carries a refuse pail. soon to be filled with clotted rags and blood, emptied and filled again. I onward go, I stop, with hinged knees and steady hand to dress wounds. I am firm with each, the pangs are sharp, yet unavoidable. One turns to me, his appealing eyes, poor boy, I never knew you, yet I think I could not refuse this moment to die for you, if that would save you. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today. Paul Bailey is a longtime member of UUCF. He lives in Garden City with his wife Nancy and 3 cats. Please welcome Paul.
Thank you. Sarah Emma Edmonds was born in New Brunswick, Canada in December 1841, the 4th of 5 children born to Isaac and Betsy Edmonds. Isaac wanted boys to help on the farm, but his only son had epilepsy. The other 4 were girls. He felt betrayed by Providence and his wife. Sarah, who preferred to be called Emma, tried to please her father by dressing like a boy and doing chores, but to no avail. At age 16, she left the strict religious environment to escape her father's abuse and an arranged marriage. Emma worked for about a year, but was constantly afraid that her father would find her. She decided to leave for the United States. In order to travel undetected and to find a well-paying job, she disguised herself as a man and called herself Franklin Thompson. As Franklin Thompson, she took a job as a bookseller and a publisher's agent. A good job like this would not have been offered to a woman. She settled in Flint, Michigan. When Sarah saw a poster seeking recruits for the new Union Army, she was determined to enlist. She was offended by the idea of slavery. At one point, Emma wrote in her diary, "It is true, I am not an American, not obligated to remain here during the terrible strife, but it is not my desire to seek personal ease and comfort while so much sorrow and distress fills the land." Franklin Thompson's first attempt to enlist failed. The recruiter suggested to Frank that by the time he was old enough, the war would be over. A month later, she had her chance. More men were needed. Physical exams were not required. As Franklin Thompson, she was accepted and was now a private in Company F, 2nd Michigan Volunteer Army of the Potomac. Sarah was skilled in riding and shooting from growing up on a farm. She felt at home in the Army. Soldiers shared tents but slept in their clothes, bathed in undergarments, and used nearby woods and streams to attend to personal needs. There was little risk of being discovered. Frank made friends and had work that gave meaning to her life. She was proud of what she was doing. Some of Frank's assignments during her enlistment included processing the mail, acting as the brigade postmaster, working as a nurse, a soldier, and a spy. Sarah was by no means the only woman to join the Union Army in the guise of a man during the Civil War, but she was the only one to leave a verifiable memoir of her military career. In 1889, former Civil War nurse and soldiers' aid activist Mary Livermore estimated that at least 400 women bore arms and served in the ranks of the Union Army. Training to work as a nurse on the battlefield was something only soldiers with the strongest stomachs could tolerate. The hours were endless. They had to assist with emergency battlefield surgeries that were done without anesthetic while the fighting continued. Frank Thompson's career took a turn when a Union spy in Richmond, Virginia was discovered and executed by firing squad, leaving a void in the intelligence gathering for General McClellan. Also, Lieutenant James Versey, who Sarah knew in Canada, was killed in an ambush. Not knowing this, she went to see him and arrived at his unit just as his funeral was about to begin. Sarah was very upset upon learning of her close friend, Lieutenant Versey's death. Near the hospital was a small cabin where the chaplain, Major Butler, lived with his wife. Frank knew Mrs. Butler, who often came to the hospital to visit patients and bring them treats from her kitchen. Sarah needed to talk to someone. She stopped and knocked on the door. Mrs. Butler invited Franklin in for coffee. Between sobs, Frank told Mrs. Butler about her friendship with the slain Lieutenant Versey. Then Frank told Mrs. Butler the rest of her secret, that she was actually a woman who felt so strongly about being in the war that she had posed as a man to do so. I declare, Mrs. Butler replied, Sarah, this is too heavy a burden for you to carry alone. It's time you had a friend and ally. Sarah asked, "You're not going to turn me in?" Mrs. Butler said, "No, if I were your age, I'm not sure I wouldn't try the same fool thing myself." Sarah told Mrs. Butler she wanted to become a spy. The chaplain's wife tried to discourage her, but realized it was impossible. So Mrs. Butler offered to help. Major Butler was not in on this secret of Franklin's true identity. As far as he knew, the soldier who offered to risk his life spying on the enemy was simply young Frank Thompson. The chaplain agreed to serve as the young soldier's sponsor. He sent Franklin Thompson's name to General McClellan's chief of staff. Frank Thompson was interviewed by a panel of officers, including General George B. McClellan, commander of the Army of the Potomac. Franklin was questioned about his views on the war between the states and his motives for risking his life as a spy. When asked if he wanted the job as a spy, Sarah replied, "I'm your man." For the first mission, Sarah decided to disguise herself as a slave. She studied maps and weapons and the personalities of the Southern commanders. She put silver nitrate on her skin to make it darker. She wore a wig. Not even the doctor she worked with as a nurse recognized her. Her code name for this mission was Cuff. On Sarah's first day in the enemy camp, she built fortifications with other slaves. Her hands blistered badly, so she talked another slave into swapping jobs and went to work in the kitchen. While in the camp working as a slave, she counted guns, found out the plans of the Confederate Army, and drew pictures of fortifications. She learned about the so-called secret guns. The Confederates had painted logs to look like giant cannons and gave the impression that they had much more artillery than they actually did. She was able to bring this information back to her commander. She went back again, this time in the guise of Bridget O'Shea, an Irish peddler. She was a woman, Sarah, pretending to be a man, Franklin, pretending to be a woman, Bridget. Sarah sold apples and soap to the soldiers while listening and watching for information to bring back. Sarah assumed other disguises as well. One time she masqueraded as a spying debonair gentleman so effectively that a Southern belle pursued her romantically. Sarah traveled as Frank Thompson into enemy territory 11 times to bring back critical information for the North. Her career as Frank Thompson came to an end when she contracted malaria. For some time she had been feeling sick, but ignored her symptoms so she could continue her work. But she worsened and was diagnosed with malaria, or swamp fever, as the soldiers called it. She was treated with quinine, but it was ineffective. Her condition became so severe that she could barely eat or sleep and was very weak. Finally, Private Thompson applied for leave, but gave no details, and the request was denied. Headquarters desperately needed every skilled nurse for the soldiers wounded on the battlefield. Sarah knew she was very sick and that she needed to be hospitalized, but to give up her identity as Private Thompson and be exposed as a woman would be humiliating. She left the Army post and checked herself into a private hospital in Cairo, Illinois, for treatment. Sarah intended to return to her unit when she recovered, but saw posters identifying Frank Thompson as a deserter. Rather than return and risk execution, she decided to offer her services as a nurse at a Washington, D.C. hospital for wounded soldiers. Sarah later wrote her memoirs, Nurse and Spy. She identified herself as S. Emma Edmonds on the book cover. The book became a bestseller. What sense of duty drove Sarah to enlist in the Army as a man and to assume the dangerous responsibilities of a Union spy? In her memoirs, Sarah said, "I am naturally fond of adventure, a little ambitious, and a good deal romantic. This, with my devotion to the federal cause and determination to assist in the utmost of my ability in crushing the rebellion, made me forget the unpleasant items and enjoy the privations connected with my perilous positions. Perhaps a spirit of adventure was important, but patriotism was the grand secret of my success." Sarah's book sold 175,000 copies. She donated all of her royalty payments to the sick and wounded soldiers of the Army of the Potomac. Sarah Edmonds served as Frank Thompson in the following battles: First Bull Run, Virginia, July 1861, Williamsburg, Virginia, May 1862, Battle of Fair Oaks, Virginia, May 1862, 7 days battles around Richmond, Virginia, June and July 1862, Second Bull Run, Virginia, August 1862, Antietam, Maryland, September 1862, and Antietam had the most casualties for 1 day, 30,000. Fredericksburg, Virginia, December 1862, and Vicksburg, Mississippi, March 1863. While visiting a hospital in Harper's Ferry, Sarah met Linus Seeley, a widower from her hometown in New Brunswick, Canada. Linus worked in the U.S. as a carpenter. They married April 27, 1867, in an elegant wedding at the Weddell House in Cleveland, Ohio. They had 3 children, none of whom survived childhood. They adopted 2 boys and raised them to adulthood. In 1875, Emma and Linus managed an orphanage in Louisiana that was established for black youths under the auspices of the Freeman's Air Society. In 1884, Sarah Edmonds attended a reunion of her former regiment in Flint, Michigan, dressed as a woman. She shocked her fellow veterans when they realized that this was the soldier they knew as Franklin Thompson. They were amazed at the courage and strength this female soldier had displayed during the war. General Orlando Poe, whose orderly she had been at Fredericksburg, subsequently wrote that there was no difficulty about identifying Sarah as Frank Thompson. "I think I would have recognized her anywhere," he said. Colonel Frederick Snyder, James Brown, and Colonel Sylvester Larned joined together to attest that In view of her many ministrations of tenderness and mercy, thousands of soldiers who were the recipients of her timely attention and nursing must remember her with the highest regard. In his historical sketch entitled Michigan in the War, John Robertson, a Civil War veteran and Adjutant General of Michigan Volunteers, addressed Sarah's role in the Secret Service. Sarah succeeded in concealing her sex most admirably, serving in various campaigns and battles of the regiment as a soldier, often employed as a spy, going within the enemy lines, sometimes absent for weeks, and is said to have furnished much valuable information. In an address to veterans of the 2nd Michigan Infantry in 1901, Colonel Frederick Snyder stated, "No war ever developed so much bravery and devotion among women as did the great Civil War of 1861 to 65. But none of the many instances recorded have surpassed the record for pure, unselfish patriotism and zeal for the cause of humanity, daring bravery, and heroic fortitude as that of Sarah Emma Edmonds, Frank Thompson of Company F. Her fellow soldiers spoke very highly of her military service. Continued poor health resulting from the war, financial difficulties, and because she was haunted by the thought of Frank Thompson being forever labeled a deserter, Sarah made a decision. With the encouragement of colleagues, she petitioned the War Department for a full review of the case of Franklin Thompson, alias Sarah Emma Edmonds. She asked to have her military rights restored, including back pay, pension, and an honorable discharge. The government investigated her claims. The case was debated by the House of Representatives in 1884, and House Bill 5335 concluded, "Truth is ofttimes stranger than fiction." And now comes the sequel. Sarah Edmonds, now Sarah Seeley, alias Franklin Thompson, is now asking Congress to grant her relief by way of a pension on account of failing health, which she said had its incurrence and is the sequence of the days and nights she spent in the swamps of the Chickahominy in the days she spent soldiering. That Franklin Thompson and Mrs. Sarah Seeley are one and the same person is established by an abundance of proof and beyond a doubt. Sarah won her battle with Washington, and on July 3rd, 1886, Congress cleared Frank Thompson from desertion charges. The Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled hereby orders that the charge of desertion borne against the name of Franklin Thompson, alias Sarah Seeley, laid a private in Company F, 2nd Michigan Infantry, be, and the same is hereby removed. An honorable discharge shall be issued. A second bill granting Sarah a pension and bonus was passed. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled that the Secretary of the Interior is hereby authorized and directed to place on the pension roll the name of Sarah Seeley, alias Franklin Thompson, who was a late private in Company F, 2nd Regiment of Michigan Infantry Volunteers, at the rate of $12 per month. Also, a bonus of $100 shall be paid. On July 5th, 1886, the bills were signed by President Grover Cleveland. Sarah Emma Edmonds was the only woman to be granted a full Civil War soldier's pension. Sarah wrote, "Of all the blessings of my life, my kind husband Linus, my 2 sons, the one thing that had eluded me was the ability to clear my name for duty to my adopted country. Having the accusation of deserter removed from my record, all but made my life complete. That I had finally been recognized by the government for which I risked my life and still suffer the physical ailments which I acquired in such service. Her own story in The Female Spy of the Union Army reveals the depth of her commitment, and the final statement in her book expresses the passion of her heart. And now I lay aside my pen, hoping that after the cruel war is over, and peace once more shall shed her sweet influence over our land, I may be permitted to resume it again, to record the annihilation of rebellion and the final triumph of truth, right, and liberty. None of us were there for the glory of the undertaking of adventure, but we shared a patriotic spirit along with a sense of what is right to ensure that America remains the land of the free and the home of the brave. During a great time of national despair, I served this country as a Union soldier to the best of my ability, something I could not have done in a dress. Sarah Emma Edmonds Seeley died at age 57 in LaPorte, Texas, affected by the grueling experiences of war and the malaria she contracted as a soldier. She was buried in the military section of Washington Cemetery in Houston, Texas, the only female buried in this section with full military honors. A limestone marker bears the simple inscription, Sarah Seeley, Army Nurse. This is the way she preferred to be remembered. After the war, a group of Civil War veterans who had fought for the Union forces formed a society called the Grand Army of the Republic. The GAR became a powerful organization in American life and had an enrollment of over 400,000 former soldiers. The only female member of that honored group was Sarah Emma Edmonds. Sarah was interviewed by local GAR officials and her military record vetted by a team of investigators. The final step to acceptance was a vote held by the veterans. Members decided in their standard way by using black and white balls. Each man dropped one ball into the mouth of a model wooden cannon that served as a voting box. A white ball meant a yes vote, a black ball countered with a nay. In Sarah's case, when the balls were tallied, there was not a single black one cast. Sarah Emma Edmonds was Canadian by birth, American and soldier by choice. In 1988, Sarah Edmonds was inducted into the U.S. Army Military Intelligence Hall of Fame. In 1992, the city of Flint, Michigan placed 2 historical markers outside its courthouse, commending her wartime activities. One was for Sarah Edmonds, the other for Franklin Thompson. Also in 1992, she was inducted into the Michigan Women's Hall of Fame. In 1990, Sarah Emma Edmonds was elected to the New Brunswick, Canada Hall of Fame. Prior to and during the Civil War, Canada served as a haven for escaped slaves, and many thousands of Canadians came to the U.S. to fight to help end slavery. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. That was very interesting. All right. For the gifts which we have received and the gifts which we ourselves are, may we be truly grateful. May we be committed to using these gifts to make a difference in the world, to increase love and justice, to decrease hate and oppression, to expand beloved community, to share and to keep sharing as long as ever we can. You are now invited to participate in the blessing of giving as the ushers come among you to accept the gifts of the congregation. You may also give online via the QR code on the back of the order of service. Thank you.
Well, good morning. My name is David Brea, and I live in Inkster. I work for Ford Motor Company, and I'm an avocational guitar player and singer. Along with our companies here, we both are Wayne State University graduates of the music department there. We both sang in the Wayne State Chamber Singers. Different eras, but we have that in common. We knew a few of the same people and everything. It's great. I'm doing a song this morning. It says in the program that I wrote this. I didn't write the song. I'm not much of a writer for songs anyway. But this is a song by John Hyatt, and I heard David Crosby's version of this, and I knew immediately that I wanted to perform this song. From the first line, it's talking about sleeping on a park bench, and about 10 years ago, I had to live in a veterans homeless shelter. I was at Volunteers of America over here on Baltimore Street, over by the Boulevard in Woodward, and I lived there for 2 years, until I got into Ford Motor Company, for which I am so eternally grateful. So this is the song, Through Your Hands. Past the scientific darkness, past the fireflies that float, to an angel bending down to wrap you in her warmest cloak. And you ask, what am I not doing? She says, your voice cannot command, but in time you will move mountains. It will come through your hands. Still you angle for an option. Still you argue for your case, like you wouldn't know a burning bush till it blew up in your face. We dream about the future, we memorize the past, when just a simple reaching out could build a bridge that lasts. And you ask, what am I not doing? She says, your voice cannot command, but in time you will move mountains. It will come through your hands. So whatever your hands find to do, you must do with all your heart. There are thoughts out there to blow folks' minds and tear great worlds apart. There's a healing touch will find you out on that broad highway somewhere, gonna lift you as high as music flowing through an angel's hair. So don't worry what you are not doing, because your voice cannot command, but in time you will move mountains. It will come through your hands, through your hands, through your hands, through your hands. Thank you.
Our next reading is called We Hold Hope Close by Julian Jamaica Soto. In this community, we hold hope close. We don't always know what comes next, but that cannot dissuade us. We don't always know just what to do, but that does not mean that we are lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath, the foundation of our values and ethics. We are the people who return to love like a North Star and to the truth that we are greater together than we are alone. Our hope does not live in some glimmer of an indistinct future. Rather, we know the way to the world of which we dream, and by covenant and the movement forward of one right action and the next, we know that one day we will arrive at home. You are welcome to come and pick up a stone or stones from the table, infuse them with your joy or sorrow, and place them in the singing bowl, where the energy will ripple out to be held by all of us. If you'd like to share something important in your heart, please come up and speak directly in the microphone. If you have submitted a joy or a sorrow via text, it will be read aloud by me. All are welcome to participate in any of these ways. We light 3 candles for the intentions that rest in the silent sanctuary of our hearts, one for the joys, one for the sorrows, and one for the strength of the gathered community that can support and bring you peace. Please rise as you are willing and able to sing our hymn from the Gray Hymnal number 348, Guide My Feet.
I forgot to say thank you to the Sunday Services Committee for the privilege of doing a talk today. And thank you to Diana, as usual, for the music. And thanks to my friend Dave Brialt for doing the music. Really appreciate it. Closing words are from Sarah Emma Edmonds. Honor nor shame from condition rise. Act well your part, there the honor lies. Thank you.
For coffee and conversation if you're able.